Montana Territory, 1878. The small town of Pineridge, nestled beneath the shadow of the Bridger Mountains, was nothing like Hartford, Connecticut. That was exactly what 20-year-old Hannah Owens had been counting on when she stepped off the stagecoach, her emerald green travel dress dusty from the journey, her auburn hair pinned neatly beneath a practical bonnet. Determination radiated from her hazel eyes, even as exhaustion threatened to buckle her knees. Independence. That was what she had come west to find. Back east, her father's passing had left her with a modest inheritance and a parade of suitors who saw her as nothing more than a means to secure their own futures. Hannah had spent her entire life being someone's daughter, someone's niece, someone's potential wife, never simply Hannah. The West is no place for a woman alone, her aunt had warned. You'll either starve or be forced to marry the first man who offers protection. Hannah clutched her carpetbag tighter. She had spent the entire 3-week journey rehearsing her response to such concerns. She would establish herself as the town's new schoolteacher. She would build her own life. She would need no man's protection or approval. "Miss, you planning to stand there all day?" The stagecoach driver had already unloaded her trunk onto the dusty street. "Hotel's just yonder." "Thank you," she murmured, pulling herself from her thoughts. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the main street as she surveyed what would be her new home. A dozen wooden buildings lined the rutted dirt road: a general store, a saloon, what appeared to be a small church, and the modest 2-story building marked Pineridge Hotel. Hannah had taken only 2 steps toward the hotel when the thunder of hooves drew her attention. A small herd of cattle burst into the street, clearly having broken free from somewhere. Townsfolk scattered, diving for porches and alleyways. Hannah froze, her eyes widening as the mass of horns and hooves headed directly toward her. "Move!" a male voice shouted. Hannah felt herself suddenly swept sideways, strong arms encircling her waist as she and her rescuer tumbled onto the boardwalk. Her carpetbag went flying, its contents spilling across the wooden planks. When the dust settled, Hannah found herself staring into the most startlingly blue eyes she had ever seen. They belonged to a young man, perhaps 24 or 25, who now crouched over her, his broad shoulders blocking the sun. A light stubble dusted his tanned face, and beneath his dusty Stetson, strands of sandy blonde hair fell across his forehead. "You all right, ma'am?" he asked, his voice gentler now. Hannah became acutely aware of his proximity, of the strong hands still steadying her shoulders, of the leather and pine scent of him. She scrambled backward, smoothing her skirts. "I am perfectly capable of handling myself, sir," she said, even as she glanced at the cattle now being rounded up by other cowboys. A smile tugged at his mouth. "Of course. You were clearly planning to stare down that longhorn bull using nothing but that bonnet of yours." Heat rushed to Hannah's cheeks. "I was momentarily startled. That's all." He chuckled, extending a hand to help her up. "Cole Vance, foreman at the Triple Pine Ranch. And you must be our new schoolteacher." Hannah hesitated before accepting his hand. "Hannah Owens. How did you—" "Small town," Cole said with a shrug, releasing her hand once she was steady. "Everyone's been talking about the Eastern lady coming to teach our children." He bent to retrieve her scattered belongings. "Though some folks were betting you'd take one look at our little town and climb right back on that stage." "I'm not so easily deterred," Hannah said, taking her carpetbag from him with perhaps more force than necessary. "I came west to build a life of my own, Mr. Vance. I intend to do exactly that." Something in Cole's expression shifted: respect, perhaps, or curiosity. "Well, Miss Owens, Pineridge certainly could use some of that determination. School's been empty since old Mrs. Winters passed last winter." "Then I arrived just in time," Hannah replied, lifting her chin. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to secure lodging before dark." Cole nodded, touching the brim of his hat. "The widow Patterson takes in boarders. Cleaner than the hotel, and she serves a fine breakfast." He paused, studying her with those unervingly direct eyes. "Triple Pine Ranch is hosting a social on Saturday. Whole town's invited. Might be a good way to meet your future students and their families." Hannah opened her mouth to decline, then reconsidered. It would be practical to meet the townspeople, particularly the parents of her future pupils. "Perhaps I will attend," she said carefully. "Good day, Mr. Vance." As she walked away, she could feel his gaze following her. Hannah squared her shoulders. She had not come west to fall under the spell of the first handsome cowboy who crossed her path. She had come for independence, for the freedom to chart her own course without a man to dictate her choices. Men like Cole Vance were exactly what she had come west to avoid. Charming, commanding, and no doubt expecting a woman to fit neatly into the role of wife and homemaker. No, her path would be different. It had to be. The schoolhouse was little more than a single-room building with rough-hewn benches and desks, a pot-bellied stove, and windows that leaked cold air. But to Hannah, standing in the center of the room 3 days after her arrival, it was perfect. "It needs some attention," Hannah said to Mrs. Patterson, the widow who had indeed taken her in as a boarder. "But I can have it ready by Monday." The older woman frowned, her gray eyes sweeping across the dusty interior. "It's been sitting empty too long. The town council approved some money for repairs, but nobody's had time to do the work." Hannah surveyed the broken window pane, the sagging shelf of outdated books, the uneven floorboards. "I can manage the cleaning, but I'll need help with the repairs." "I'll speak to Mayor Williams," Mrs. Patterson promised. "Though most of the men are busy with spring cattle work." Hannah ran her fingers along a desk, feeling the rough wood beneath her fingertips. This would be her domain, her proof that a woman could carve out a place of respect in the West without marrying. She would teach these frontier children, earn her own living, and answer to no one. She was scrubbing the windows when a voice startled her mid-afternoon. "Mrs. Patterson said you might need some help." Hannah turned to find Cole Vance standing in the doorway, tools in hand, his tall frame nearly filling the entrance. He'd exchanged his ranching clothes for a clean blue shirt that matched his eyes, though he still wore work-worn jeans and boots. "Mr. Vance, don't you have cattle to attend to?" "Got my boys handling things today." He surveyed the room. "Looks like you've been busy." Hannah nodded, suddenly conscious of her rolled-up sleeves and the apron covering her simple blue dress. She'd pinned her hair up hastily that morning, and strands now escaped around her face. "I was planning to open school on Monday." Cole let out a low whistle. "Ambitious. That window won't keep out the spring rains, and that stovepipe needs replacing before you can light a fire. The town council is 3 old men who move slower than molasses in January." Cole set his toolbox down. "I brought some glass for that window, and I can fix the stovepipe after." Hannah crossed her arms. "I didn't ask for your help, Mr. Vance." "No, you didn't." His gaze was steady. "But these children need schooling, and you need a proper classroom. Does it matter who helps get it ready?" Hannah hesitated. Her pride warred with practicality. "I suppose not," she finally conceded. "Thank you." They worked in relative silence, Hannah continuing her cleaning while Cole measured and cut glass for the window. She found herself stealing glances at him. The careful precision of his hands, the concentration in his expression, the way he whistled softly as he worked. "Why did you come west, Miss Owens?" Cole asked suddenly, startling her from her observations. Hannah considered deflecting the question, but found herself answering honestly. "After my father died, I realized I'd spent my whole life being defined by my relationship to others. Daughter, niece, potential wife." She scrubbed harder at a particularly stubborn spot. "I wanted to be defined by my own actions, my own choices." Cole nodded thoughtfully. "The West is good for that. Out here, it's what you can do that matters more than who your people are." "And you? Were you born here?" "Came out as a boy with my pa after the war. He died from a fever 5 years ago." Cole finished setting the glass and began securing it. "Left me the ranch. It isn't much compared to some, but it's mine. Built it with my own 2 hands." There was quiet pride in his voice that resonated with something in Hannah. She understood the desire to create something that belonged solely to oneself. "Is that why you never married?" she asked before she could stop herself. "Too busy building your ranch?" Cole glanced at her, a smile playing at the corner of his mouth. "What makes you think I never married?" Hannah felt heat creep up her neck. I just assumed. Mrs. Patterson mentioned you were one of Pineridge's most eligible bachelors." His laugh was warm and genuine. "Did she now? Well, she's right that I'm unmarried. But not because I've been too busy." He turned back to his work. "Just never met a woman who saw the West the way I do, as a place to build something, not just survive it." Hannah fell silent, disturbed by the unexpected parallel to her own thoughts. By late afternoon, the window was fixed, the stovepipe replaced, and Cole had even repaired several benches and desks. "Thank you," Hannah said as they stood in the doorway, surveying their work. It's much improved. Still coming to the social on Saturday? Cole asked, putting on his hat. Hannah nodded. It seems wise to meet the families before school begins. I'll send my wagon for you. 7 o'clock. He touched his hat brim and turned to leave, then paused. You know, Miss Owens, seeking independence doesn't have to mean being alone. Before she could formulate a response, he was gone, leaving Hannah staring after him, unsettled by how easily he had seen through her carefully constructed walls. The Triple Pine Ranch sprawled across a valley 15 miles from town, its main house larger than Hannah had expected. Lanterns hung from the porch rafters, illuminating the yard where tables had been set up. A fiddle player and banjo player provided lively music, and what seemed like the entire town of Pineridge was in attendance. Quite the gathering, Hannah remarked as Cole helped her down from the wagon. She'd worn her best dress, a deep blue with white lace at the collar and cuffs, and arranged her hair more carefully than usual. Triple Pine socials are tradition, Cole explained. My father started them. Said a ranch should be part of its community. Hannah was introduced to so many people that their names and faces began to blur together. Parents brought children forward, proudly announcing ages and abilities. The town blacksmith, the storekeeper, the banker, and his wife all welcomed her with varying degrees of curiosity. You've caused quite a stir, Cole observed later, handing her a cup of punch. Half the town's talking about the pretty Eastern teacher with modern ideas. And what does the other half say? That you won't last through winter. His eyes held a challenge. I've got money on you staying. Hannah laughed despite herself. Betting on me, Mr. Vance? Believing in you, he corrected. The evening progressed pleasantly until Hannah overheard a conversation not meant for her ears. She had stepped away to catch her breath near the edge of the gathering when voices drifted from the other side of a wagon. She seems awful young to be teaching our children, a woman's voice said. And unmarried, another added. No woman comes west alone unless she's running from something or looking for a husband. Cole Vance seems mighty interested, the first voice continued. Always did have a soft spot for strays and lost causes. Hannah stiffened, her cheeks burning. Is that how they saw her? A stray? A lost cause? The punch in her cup suddenly tasted bitter. Don't let them bother you. Hannah turned to find a young woman about her own age standing nearby. She wore a simple but well-made green dress, her blonde hair arranged in a practical braid. Sarah Miller. The woman introduced herself. My husband runs the livery stable, and those old biddies have nothing better to do than gossip. Hannah managed to smile. Hannah Owens. I know who you are. Everyone does. Sarah smiled. And I, for one, am glad you're here. My Tommy is 6 and smart as a whip. He needs proper schooling. Hannah felt some of her tension ease. I look forward to teaching him. And don't worry about what they said about Cole, Sarah added more quietly. He's a good man. Lost his mother young, then his father. Built that ranch up from nearly nothing after the bank nearly took it. He knows what it means to stand on your own. Before Hannah could respond, Cole appeared, his expression brightening when he saw her. There you are. They're about to start the dancing. He extended his hand. Care to join me, Miss Owens? Hannah hesitated. Dancing with the town's most eligible bachelor would only fuel the gossip. But something in his eyes, a genuine warmth, an invitation without expectation, made her place her hand in his. One dance, Mr. Vance. One dance became 3, and Hannah discovered that Cole moved with surprising grace for a cowboy. His hand at her waist was respectful, his conversation engaging. He told her about the challenges of ranching, about the harsh winter 2 years prior that had nearly bankrupted him, about his dreams of expanding Triple Pine. You love this land, Hannah observed during a pause in their conversation. It's part of me now, Cole admitted. Took a while to feel that way. First few years, I was just surviving it. Now I'm building something. The simple honesty in his words resonated with her. As the evening ended and he drove her back to town, Hannah found herself more relaxed in his company than she had been with anyone in a long time. Thank you for inviting me, she said as he helped her down at Mrs. Patterson's boarding house. It was informative. Cole smiled. High praise from a schoolteacher. He hesitated, then added, I meant what I said the other day. Independence doesn't have to mean being alone. Hannah felt her defenses rise again. Mr. Vance. Cole, he corrected gently. Cole, she amended. I came west to establish myself, not to find a husband. His smile was knowing. I'm not proposing, Hannah. just suggesting that having allies doesn't diminish your independence. The use of her given name sent an unexpected warmth through her. "I should go in," she said, suddenly flustered. "School starts Monday." Cole nodded. "I'll be bringing some of my ranch hands' children. They live too far to ride in daily, so they'll board in town during the week. I'll be ready for them," Hannah promised, then hurried inside before she could say anything else. As she prepared for bed, Hannah couldn't shake the conflicting emotions Cole Vance stirred in her. He respected her independence, yet his presence made her acutely aware of herself as a woman. He seemed to see her, really see her, in a way no one ever had before. But that was precisely what made him dangerous. Hannah had built her plans around standing alone. Cole Vance, with his steady gaze and quiet strength, threatened to complicate everything. By mid-May, Hannah had settled into a routine. Her days were filled with teaching the 23 children who attended her school, ranging from 6-year-old Tommy Miller to 16-year-old Abigail Peterson, who had never had formal schooling. Evenings were spent preparing lessons, grading papers, and occasionally joining Mrs. Patterson for tea. She saw Cole Vance only occasionally, when he came to town for supplies or brought one of his ranch hands' children a forgotten item. Each brief encounter left her feeling oddly unsettled, aware of a connection she was reluctant to acknowledge. The spring rains had been unusually heavy, turning the roads to mud and causing the creek that ran through town to swell dangerously. Hannah had just dismissed her students one Friday afternoon when Mayor Williams appeared at the schoolhouse door. "Miss Owens, we're evacuating the lower part of town," he announced without preamble. "Creek's risen 6 feet since morning. The mill dam might not hold." Hannah looked out at the darkening sky. "What can I do to help?" "Make sure all your students get home safely. Then gather what you need from your boarding house. Those on higher ground are taking in folks from lower areas." The next hour was chaos as Hannah helped younger children find older siblings, sent notes to parents, and finally made her way through the downpour to Mrs. Patterson's house. The widow was already packing essentials. "The Millers have offered us shelter," she told Hannah. "Their place is on the rise past the church." Hannah had just finished gathering her most important possessions, letters from her father, her teaching certificates, a few cherished books, when a knock came at the door. Cole stood on the porch, rain sluicing off his slicker and hat. "Hannah," he said, relief evident in his voice. "Thank God you're still here. The bridge at the north end of town just washed out. You need to come now. Water's rising faster than anyone expected." Mrs. Patterson emerged from her room, carpetbag in hand. "Mr. Vance, what brings you to town in this deluge?" "Came to bring supplies," he explained quickly. "Now I'm helping with evacuations. My wagon's outside." They hurried through the rain, Cole helping them climb into the wagon where 2 other townspeople already sat huddled under blankets. As they pulled away, Hannah glanced back to see water already lapping at the porch steps of the boarding house. The journey to the Miller home was tense, the wagon wheels slipping in mud as Cole coaxed the team forward. Twice they had to detour when roads proved impassable. By the time they reached the Millers, darkness had fallen and the rain continued relentlessly. "You can't go back out in this," Sarah Miller insisted when Cole prepared to leave. "The roads are getting worse by the minute." "There are still people who need help," Cole argued. Hannah caught his arm. "At least wait until the rain lets up. You'll be no help to anyone if you and your wagon wash away." Something in her voice must have reached him, for Cole reluctantly agreed to wait. The Miller home was crowded with evacuees, 3 families besides Hannah and Mrs. Patterson. Children slept on pallets while adults took turns keeping watch on the rising waters. Hannah found Cole standing at a window near midnight, his expression grim as he stared out at the storm. "You should rest," she said softly, coming to stand beside him. "I'm worried about the ranch," he admitted. "Left my foreman in charge, but if the creek's this high in town—" "Your ranch hands know what to do," Hannah reassured him. "They're capable men." Cole glanced at her, a small smile touching his lips despite his concern. "You've met exactly 2 of them, picking up their children from school. And they spoke highly of you," Hannah replied. "Said you run a tight operation, fair but thorough. Men don't talk that way about bosses they don't respect." The smile reached his eyes. "Careful, Miss Owens." That almost sounded like a compliment. Hannah felt heat rise to her cheeks. Merely an observation. They stood in companionable silence, watching the rain. After a moment, Cole spoke again, his voice lower. When I saw the water rising in town, my first thought was of you. Not my ranch, not my cattle. You. Hannah's breath caught. Cole, I know you came west to be independent, he continued. I respect that. But these past months, seeing you build your place here, watching how you care for those children. He turned to face her fully. You've made me think about things I haven't considered in years. A future that's more than just the next season of calving or the next cattle drive. Hannah felt something shift inside her, a wall beginning to crumble. I didn't come west looking for. I know what you didn't come looking for, Cole said gently. I'm more interested in what you might have found anyway. Before Hannah could respond, shouting erupted outside. Cole was instantly alert, moving to the door with Hannah close behind. In the yard, illuminated by lantern light, several men on horseback had arrived. Dam's going, one shouted. Everyone higher up the ridge. What followed was a blur of activity. Families gathering children, possessions being loaded onto wagons, livestock being herded to higher ground. Cole worked tirelessly, helping elderly townspeople into wagons, carrying children through mud, directing people towards safety. Hannah found herself alongside him, her skirts caked with mud as she helped organize the evacuation. She had just helped Mrs. Patterson into a wagon when she heard a child scream from the direction they had come. Someone's still back there, she said, grabbing Cole's arm. Without hesitation, Cole turned and began slogging back through the mud, Hannah beside him. Through the rain, they saw a small figure huddled on what had become an island in the rapidly rising water, the miller's chicken coop, now surrounded by the encroaching creek. It's Annie Wilson, Hannah gasped, recognizing one of her youngest pupils. She must have been sleeping in the barn and gotten left behind. The girl was sobbing, clinging to the coop as water swirled around her feet. The distance wasn't great, perhaps 30 feet, but the current between them and the child was visibly strong. Stay here, Cole ordered, already removing his coat. No, Hannah countered, kicking off her shoes. She's terrified of men. She'll come to me. Cole grabbed her arm. Hannah, it's too dangerous. She's my student, Hannah said firmly. I'm responsible for her. Something in Cole's expression changed. Recognition, respect, and fear all mingled together. Together, then, he said after a moment. I'll anchor us with a rope. There was no time to argue. Cole quickly secured a rope around his waist, then tied the other end around Hannah's. Together, they waded into the rushing water, fighting against the current that tugged at their legs. The water rose to Hannah's waist, then higher, the cold stealing her breath. Cole's arm around her was the only thing keeping her from being swept away. Step by treacherous step, they made their way to the chicken coop. Annie, Hannah called, extending her hand as they drew near. Come to me, sweetheart. We're going to get you to safety. The terrified 7-year-old looked up, her face pale, in the darkness. Miss Owens. Yes, it's me. And Mr. Vance. We're going to help you. Cole boosted Hannah up onto the partially submerged coop, and she gathered the child in her arms. Close your eyes and hold tight to me, Hannah instructed. Don't let go. The return journey was even more harrowing. The water had risen further, and with Annie's weight added to her own, Hannah struggled to keep her footing. Cole practically carried them both, his strength the only thing preventing the current from claiming them. When they finally reached solid ground, willing hands helped them up the slope. Annie was quickly reunited with her hysterical parents, and Hannah found herself wrapped in a blanket, shivering uncontrollably. That, Cole said as he crouched beside her, his own blanket draped around his shoulders, was either the bravest or most foolish thing I've ever seen. Hannah managed a weak smile. Perhaps both. Cole's expression turned serious. You could have died. So could you, she countered. Yet you came with me without hesitation. Their eyes held for a long moment. Then Cole reached out, tucking a strand of wet hair behind her ear. Because that's what you do when you care about someone, Hannah. You face the current together. In that moment, with rain still falling around them and the sounds of the evacuation continuing, Hannah felt the last of her carefully constructed defenses begin to crumble. The belief that had driven her west, that independence meant standing alone, suddenly seemed hollow compared to the truth in Cole's eyes. Before she could speak, however, one of Cole's ranch hands appeared, his expression urgent. Boss, just got word, Triple Pine's in trouble. Creeks jumped its banks and the cattle are scattered. Half the south pastures underwater. Cole was on his feet instantly. I need to get back. Hannah stood as well, still clutching the blanket around her shoulders. Go. Your ranch needs you. He hesitated, his eyes searching hers. This isn't finished, Hannah. What's between us? I know, she whispered, and for the first time since arriving in the West, she allowed herself to admit the truth. Be careful, Cole. He nodded once, squeezed her hand, and was gone, disappearing into the rain with his ranch hand. As Hannah watched him go, she realized that in trying to avoid one kind of dependence, she had nearly missed the possibility of something far different, a partnership where independence wasn't sacrificed but strengthened. The floodwaters receded slowly over the next 2 weeks, leaving devastation in their wake. The lower part of town had suffered significant damage, including Hannah's boarding house and the schoolhouse. The community rallied together, clearing debris, rebuilding where necessary, and helping those who had lost homes. Hannah threw herself into the recovery efforts, organizing the older children to help with appropriate tasks while continuing lessons in the church, which had escaped major damage. She had heard nothing from Cole since the night of the evacuation, though reports filtered in that Triple Pine Ranch had suffered substantial losses. Lost nearly a third of his herd, Mrs. Patterson told her one evening as they helped prepare a community meal in the church hall. And his main barn collapsed. He and his men have been working day and night to salvage what they can. Hannah's heart ached at the news. She had come to understand how much the ranch meant to Cole, not just as property, but as the embodiment of his dreams and hard work. 3 weeks after the flood, Hannah was supervising the clearing of mud from the schoolhouse floor when a familiar figure appeared in the doorway. Cole looked exhausted, thinner than before, with new lines etched around his eyes. But he smiled when he saw her, and Hannah felt her heart quicken. The schoolmarm gets her hands dirty. I see, he said, nodding toward her mud-stained apron. Mr. Vance, Hannah acknowledged, suddenly conscious of her disheveled appearance. I heard about your ranch. I'm so sorry. Cole shrugged, though she could see the pain behind the casual gesture. We'll rebuild. Already started. He surveyed the schoolhouse. Looks like you're doing the same. The children need their school, Hannah said simply. And I need. She trailed off, uncertain how to continue. What do you need, Hannah? Cole asked quietly, stepping closer. Hannah met his gaze steadily. I've been thinking about what you said. About independence, not meaning being alone. She took a deep breath. The night of the flood changed something in me, Cole. Seeing the town come together, working alongside everyone to save what could be saved. I realized that true strength isn't found in isolation. Cole's expression softened. I've been thinking too, about what makes a life worth building. He glanced around the schoolhouse, then back to her. When I thought I might lose the ranch, I realized something. Land, cattle, they're important. But not as important as having someone to share it all with. Hannah's breath caught. Cole, I'm not asking you to give up your independence, he continued earnestly. Or your teaching. The town needs you. Those children need you. He stepped closer still. I'm asking if you might consider sharing your life with mine. Building something together instead of apart. Hannah felt tears prick her eyes. I came west believing I needed to stand entirely alone to be truly independent, she admitted. I was wrong. Real independence isn't about isolation. It's about having the freedom to choose who stands beside you. Cole's smile was like sunrise breaking over the mountains. Is that a yes, Hannah Owens? It's a yes, Cole Vance, she whispered. To building something together. His kiss was gentle at first, then deepened with a promise of passion and partnership that made Hannah's heart soar. When they finally broke apart, she laughed softly. Mrs. Patterson will be insufferable. She's been hinting for weeks that you and I were meant for each other. Smart woman, Cole murmured, tucking Hannah against his side. Though I think we needed to discover it ourselves. October 1879 golden afternoon light streamed through the windows of the Triple Pine Ranch house, illuminating the gathered friends and neighbors. Hannah stood beside Cole in the ranch's newly rebuilt main room, her hand steady in his as they exchanged vows before the traveling minister. She wore a cream-colored dress with lace at the collar and cuffs, her auburn hair arranged with white flowers. Cole looked handsome and slightly nervous in his best suit, his blue eyes never leaving hers as they promised to share their lives. I now pronounce you man and wife, the minister declared, and cheers erupted from the gathered townspeople. Later, as fiddles played and guests danced in the yard, Hannah and Cole slipped away to the porch, looking out over the land they now shared. In the distance, the schoolhouse, rebuilt with Cole's help, stood as a testament to Hannah's ongoing commitment to education. "Happy, Mrs. Vance?" Cole asked, his arm around her waist. "Very," Hannah replied, leaning into his embrace. "Though I'll still be Miss Owens in the schoolhouse." Cole laughed. "I wouldn't have it any other way. Your independence was what drew me to you in the first place." Hannah looked up at him, this man who had shown her that true strength came from connection, not isolation. "I came west seeking independence," she said softly, "and found something I never expected." "What's that?" Cole asked, his fingers gently tracing her cheek. "That independence isn't diminished by love, it's completed by it." Hannah reached up to touch his face. "I thought I needed to build my life alone to prove my strength. But there's more strength in what we're building together than I could ever have created by myself." As twilight settled over Triple Pine Ranch, Hannah and Cole Vance stood together on the threshold of their shared life. A partnership of equals, each bringing their own strength and independence to create something stronger than either could have built alone. The West had taught Hannah what her journey east could not. That true independence wasn't found in isolation, but in the freedom to choose who to walk beside. And in Cole Vance, she had found not a constraint on her freedom, but a partner who cherished her strength as much as she valued his. Together, they would face whatever challenges the frontier brought, building their life one day at a time, proving that the strongest foundations were those built by two hearts working as one.